You let her go for standing up for an elderly man? That's shameful. Laura, a warm-hearted waitress, had stepped in when a group of teenagers began taunting an elderly biker. Her brave stand cost her the job, but she didn't regret it for a second. Just 2 hours later, the quiet street shook as 500 motorcycles rolled in, changing the course of Laura's life forever. This is what happened. Hi everyone and welcome to Life Tales. Let's dive in. Laura Bennett, 42, had been a waitress at Simmons's Diner, one of the town's most iconic restaurants, for nearly 2 decades. While others her age had moved on to different paths, Laura chose to stay. Caring for people brought her joy, and the diner gave her that chance every single day. To her, the regulars weren't just people she served, they were extended family. Life hadn't exactly been kind to Laura. After losing her husband 12 years earlier, she'd been raising her daughter, Lily, entirely on her own, working double shifts just to keep them afloat. Folks often told her she could earn more elsewhere, but Laura believed there were more important things than a paycheck. Simmons's Diner had stood by her during her darkest moments, and she remained fiercely loyal to the place that had become her refuge. This wasn't just some eatery on Main Street, it was the soul of the town. The red and chrome building had been a fixture on that corner for over 50 years, and more than half the town's residents had made it part of their routine. Laura had started back when old Mr. Simmons still ran the place, and he had always treated her like one of his own, even giving her extra shifts to help with Lily's college tuition. People didn't just love the food, they came for Laura. She had a special gift for making each person feel seen. She remembered every little detail, like how Mr. Jacobs wanted his coffee with 2 sugars and toast perfectly crisp, or that Mrs. Evans, who once taught Laura's daughter in 3rd grade, had a nut allergy. After 2 decades of service, Laura knew the backstory of just about every familiar face who walked in. But everything began to unravel 3 months earlier when Mr. Simmons retired and handed the business over to his son, Greg. Unlike his father, Greg didn't care much for tradition or community. He only had profits on his mind. From the moment he took over, the changes came fast. He raised the prices, overhauled the classic menu, and tried to give the place a sleek, upscale vibe. Soon, longtime patrons started to drift away, feeling out of place in what had once been their second home. And Laura could only watch, heartbroken, as the warmth and charm of the diner slowly disappeared. Then came that rainy afternoon in October. Laura was midway through her regular shift when she saw an elderly man roll up on a weathered Harley-Davidson. She knew him instantly, Leo Turner, 75 years old and a true fixture at the diner. He'd been stopping in for his Tuesday slice of apple pie and coffee for longer than Laura had worked there. He wore the same old leather jacket and his beard had gone completely gray, but Leo always had a kind word and a smile for anyone he met. He wasn't just a customer. Leo had history with that place. There was even an old black and white photo on the wall behind his usual booth, him and Mr. Simmons back in 1968, proudly standing next to their motorcycles, both looking young and full of life. Laura still remembered how, in her early days, Leo was one of the first to make her feel welcome. He'd sit and tell stories about the town's past while she refilled his coffee, always with a wink and a chuckle. As Leo headed toward his booth, a group of teenagers from the elite private school nearby began snickering and making loud remarks. They were the new kind of customer Greg was courting, kids who showed off their parents' credit cards and treated the waitstaff like background noise. "Check out the old dude," one of them scoffed. "Thinks he's still in a biker gang. Should have parked that dinosaur at the retirement home," another snorted. "That he forgot where he even left it," a third added, triggering a round of laughter from the table. Laura caught the slight drop in Leo's shoulders as he passed by. She knew he'd heard every word, how could he not? He didn't react, didn't say a thing, just kept walking with quiet dignity. But Laura could see it in his eyes, those words cut deep. The teens grew even more bold. One of them stuck out his foot, trying to trip Leo as he walked past. Laura reacted instantly, reaching out to steady him before he could stumble. That was the final straw. After years of watching the diner she loved slowly morph into something unrecognizable, and seeing someone like Leo humiliated in his own second home, something inside her snapped. "That's enough," she said sharply, turning to face the teens. "Gather your things and go. We don't serve bullies in this diner." The teens looked stunned. No one had ever dared to challenge them before. "Do you even know who my dad is?" One of them snapped, lifting his phone. "He's on the city council. I don't care if your dad's the mayor or the president. Laura replied coolly, her tone unwavering. You don't get to treat people like that in here. Not in Simmons's diner. Not ever. The commotion drew Greg out of his office. He stormed over, face flushed with anger. Laura, you can't just kick out paying customers, he barked. Apologize to them. Now. But Laura didn't budge. She stood tall, just like she had through every storm in her life. No, sir, Laura replied firmly. They tried to trip an elderly man. That's not just wrong, it's dangerous and downright cruel. Then you're fired, Greg said without a hint of emotion. Grab your things and leave. Leo stepped in, trying to calm things down, but Greg wasn't having any of it. Without a word, Laura untied her apron, gave Leo a soft, reassuring smile, and walked out shoulders back, head high, exactly the way she'd always taught her daughter to carry herself when faced with injustice. What Greg didn't realize was that Leo Turner wasn't just some old biker. Back in the 1960s, Leo had founded the Iron Veterans Motorcycle Club, which eventually grew into the largest and most respected motorcycle organization in the entire state. Over the years, the group built a reputation for their dedication to charity and service, raising millions for local causes. Ironically, they had once quietly stepped in to help Laura pay for her late husband's medical bills, though she never knew it was them. The moment Laura walked out, Leo pulled out his phone. Within minutes, word of what had happened was buzzing through every biker group in the area. Other customers in the diner were also firing off texts and calls, spreading the news that Greg had fired Laura for standing up to a bunch of teenage bullies. Roughly 2 hours later, the street began to tremble. The low, rising roar of engines filled the air as motorcycles started to pour in, not just from the Iron Veterans, but from every club across the state. Vintage bikes, custom bikes, young riders, old veterans. Soon, the entire block was packed with over 500 motorcycles. At the front of the pack, Leo Turner led them straight into the diner, now brimming with leather jackets and determined faces. Greg Blake stood frozen behind the counter as Leo raised his voice to address the room. This place used to mean something, he said, his voice steady and loud enough for all to hear. Old Mr. Simmons understood that. He knew it wasn't about who had the deepest pockets. It was about showing respect. A tall woman stepped forward, probably in her early 50s, with a commanding presence and a vest covered in biker patches. I'm Susan Briggs, and I'm the current president of the Iron Veterans, she said. We've been loyal to this place for 40 years. We've hosted every charity ride, every toy drop, every fundraiser right here. This diner was our home base until now. Then she turned to Greg. We've already spoken to your father. He's agreed to sell us the diner. The paperwork's in motion as we speak. Greg's face went pale. You can't be serious. It's already done, Susan replied with a confident smile. And the very first thing we're doing? Making Laura the new manager. The news spread like wildfire across social media. Local outlets picked up the story quickly, cheering on the bikers who took a stand against cruelty. The Iron Veterans' legacy of community support only grew stronger in the public eye. Today, Simmons's diner still stands proudly on that same street corner, but it now belongs to the Iron Veterans Motorcycle Club. Laura runs it with the same heart, warmth, and devotion she always brought as a waitress. And every Tuesday, like clockwork, Leo can be found in his usual booth, sipping his coffee and enjoying a slice of apple pie. As for the teens who caused all the trouble, they came back a week later, heads bowed, to apologize. Not just to Leo, but to Laura, too. Watching 500 bikers rise up to defend what's right had taught them more about respect than any school speech ever could. And Greg? He tried launching a fancy restaurant on the other side of town, but it never took off the way Simmons's diner did. Word around town is that he eventually realized something vital, that success isn't measured by sleek decor or inflated prices, but by how you treat the people who walk through your door. These days, there's a new sign above the diner's entrance. Everyone's welcome as long as you bring respect. And underneath that sign, a steady line of motorcycles parked along the curb, a rain or shine, a quiet reminder that sometimes the people with the roughest edges carry the kindest hearts. Laura's daughter, Lily, now a college graduate, often swings by on weekends to lend a hand. She proudly tells anyone who'll listen that the biggest life lesson she's ever learned came from her mom. Doing the right thing might cost you something up front, but kindness and courage always find their way back to you. Because real success? It's not about what you earn. It's about who you are when it counts. So yes, standing up for what's right might feel risky in the moment. But in the end, goodness always has a way of circling back when you need it most. Just ask Laura. She'll tell you all about it over a cup of coffee and a slice of apple pie, served with the same warm smile that's been welcoming folks to Simmons's Diner for the past 20 years. Enjoyed this story? Smash that like button and subscribe for more powerful tales from Life Tales. And be sure to check out the next video, we promise it's one you won't want to miss. Until next time.